Nia DaCosta's The Bone Temple is perhaps the least stylized entry in the titular franchise, opting to instead divert its overall agency to the characters rather than the familiar, pre-established dread of impending doom. The opening scene features Spike, who is alone in the wake of his father's desertion and mother's passing. Following the dissolution of civilized society in the wake of the rage virus, Spike is seen in an abandoned building surrounded by the Jimmies. For what is almost entirely somber in tone, 28 years later's ending is a jarring break from the heart-wrenching sadness synonymous with Holy Island, and its erratic energy maintains its presence here. It's 1964 New Year's Day. A new British show called Top of the Pops airs for the first time on television. Dusty Springfield opens the act, followed by the Rolling Stones, the Dave Clark Five, the Hollies, the Swinging Blue Jeans, and of course, the Beatles. I Wanna Hold Your Hand is the #1 song on the charts. The 37-year-old presenter sports boisterous blonde hair, introducing himself as Jimmy Savile. The footage from this is lost. The leader, Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, sits atop a makeshift throne. Everyone is wearing a blonde wig and a tracksuit. Jack O'Connell's performance as Jimmy Crystal straddles the line between charisma and coercion. His tangents consistently revolve around Old Nick, a moniker for Satan. The power imbalance imposed on the group is based on a farcical reverence for the divine, creating a set of circumstances dependent on a false sense of community. True community is founded upon safety and mutual aid instead of competition, and should rebuke hierarchy at its core. This isn't the case for the Jimmies, however. Trial by combat is welcomed, and violence is inextricable from power. Routine killings are sensationalized, bloody bodies replaced by the abolishing of the individual. Harkening back to the beginning of 28 years later, Jimmy's inverted crucifix necklace is confirmed to be a gift from his father and a symbol of religious fanaticism. Considering that Jimmy must have been born in the late 1990s when referencing the timeline of events in both the diegetic world and real life, it is likely that his appropriation of Savile's appearance came from his father. Savile stopped presenting regularly for the Top of the Pops in 1998, and Jim Will Fix It ended in 1994. Those familiar with his history will no doubt know of his reprehensible sexual abuse crimes committed throughout decades of his life. Made all the more harrowing due to his frequent and close proximity to positions of power in all sectors of the political and entertainment landscape, Savile's victims range from children to the elderly. Dan Davies' book, In Plain Sight, The Life and Lies of Jimmy Savile, functions as an all-encompassing exposé of its subject, illustrating how power consolidates and festers under abuse. Eyewitness accounts, interviews, and primary sources are examined, illustrating how positions of power perpetuate atrocities. The Bone Temple's apocalyptic world reinvigorates a familiar trope in zombie cinema, where humans are exposed as the true monsters. Dr. Kelson's eccentricity is developed through both his craftsmanship and routine, and his sense of place in the world is driven by the philosophy of memento mori, or the inevitability of death. Both his occupation and experimentation with Samson attempt to delay this natural process. The literal rage in Samson is quelled by a sedative, a synthesis of both man and nature. He seeks to rule over no one, only to heal and sustain the necessary. Photos of those he once held dear, skulls of those who have passed, books, records, and material objects are tactile bits of memory that persist, lingering in a permanence made possible only by Kelson himself. In a post-rage virus society, Kelson's behavior would be cause for widespread alarm. A so-called doctor builds a shrine of skulls to commemorate the dead, remaining consistently solitary out of safety while jeopardizing it by providing goodwill to those who have no choice but to pass through. The film's portrayal of Satanism is rather refreshing since its iconography often functions as a moldable cult aesthetic, often devoid of any true substance. Penny Lane's 2019 documentary, Hail Satan, centers around the movement's contemporary perception, illuminating its societal dismissal. I find its abstraction as a religion to be fascinating, for its tenets are simultaneously othered as a form of faith, serving as taboo in certain denominations. However, the Satanic Temple itself is a relatively new non-theistic religious movement. Members hold an affinity toward political egalitarianism rather than blindly worshipping an abstract, evil opposing force. Its relationship with the Church of Satan is complex, with the documentary's centering of the temple's co-founder, Lucien Greaves, serving as an insight into this oddball mutualism. As political and religious theory intertwine, morality and law become inseparable, ushering society toward a weak appeal to nature, social Darwinism. Jimmy was born into the only generation that experienced the outbreak as a child. He is likely to genuinely believe in the rapture that his father welcomes at first, eventually resorting to Satanism, a form of coping with the spirituality that failed him. Abuse is a disease that takes root in many forms and is depicted in a cyclical nature in the Bone Temple. We are left unaware of how Jimmy's upbringing as a child of a minister plays into his lust for power, only that the system he abuses functions in favor of him. The audience is left to their own devices when determining the cause of Jimmy's affinity for harm, whether the rest of the Jimmies play along to survive, and if the group was formed before or after the outbreak of the Rage virus. His power is conjured through a cult of personality where the alarming natural state is accepted. Jimmy does not practice what he preaches. Savile's closeness with the likes of Margaret Thatcher, Prince Charles, and the BBC can be representative of how the perception of power structures aid their abuse. Savile's natural state as a performer in the public eye allowed him to cultivate a persona through mainstream media. While Jimmy in the film makes no explicit references to Savile himself, the act of giving charity is paired with a sexual innuendo, most outwardly portrayed in the extended barn sequence. Always said charity starts at home. Jimmy's adoption of the Savile image warns of the dangers within the human quest for divine reverence, where false prophets abuse power. Often cited as one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time, Iron Maiden continue to amass praise for their prolific output and technical virtuosity. Their third album, The Number of the Beast, was released in 1982 and features a classic rendition of Eddie, the group's now mascot. Eddie is controlling a comically small Satan with his fingers, while Satan controls an even smaller version of Eddie. The title track's pairing with the artwork contributed to religious groups in the United States accusing the band of being Satanists among fringe groups of the public. Do I believe that most of these people hated Iron Maiden simply because of their music? No, but cases like these illustrate how harmful those who rely solely on hearsay damage their actual cause, poisoning their own versions of faith. Of course, Kelson's love for music manifests in Ralph Fiennes' masterful dance performance in tandem with the track, serving as Satan's official introduction to the rest of the Jimmies. Woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil sends his beast with wrath, because he knows the time is short. Let him who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number. Its number is 666. Humanity's consistent duel against a seemingly systematic appeal to nature is jeopardized by the rationalization of evil. Satan's role exists only through a specific form of comprehension, limited by the power of belief. When this fails, when even nature renders itself incomprehensible, spirituality is the final refrain. Faith's mutualistic connection to doubt allows for it to be corrupted, as evil pawns itself from source to source. I left alone, my mind was blank. I needed time to think to get the memories from my mind. What did I see, can I believe? That what I saw that night was real and not just fantasy. Just what I saw in my old dreams. Were they reflections of my warped mind staring back at me? 'Cause in my dreams, it's always there, the evil face that twists my mind and brings me to despair. Night was black, was no use holding back, 'cause I just had to see, was someone watching me. In the mist, dark figures move and twist. Was all this for real or just some kind of hell? Torches blazed and sacred chants were phrased as they start to cry, hands held to the sky. In the night, the fires are burning bright. The ritual has begun. Satan's work is done. This can't go on, I must inform the law. Can this still be real or just some crazy dream? But I feel drawn towards the chanting hordes, seem to mesmerize, can't avoid the eyes. I'm coming back, I will return, and I'll possess your body and I'll make you burn. I have the fire, I have the force, I have the power to make my evil take its course. Kelson's fate as a harbinger of truth positions him as an omnipotent force, while also being dependent on Jimmy not to reveal his true identity. Of course, the facade for both men comes crumbling down upon confrontation. Jimmy's world hinges upon how faithful three different people are in this form of Satan, and how their mortal leader reacts to a Satan who may turn on him. Systems of abuse are built on complicity, reliant on the hope of general inaction, playing into the lyrics of the song. Being based on a dream and also never clearly defining its titular subject, these work in contrast to functional linear storytelling. To me, the idea of Satan resembling a general skepticism toward the nature of evil in modern society parallels how it must be explained rather than fought. It is impossible to determine how nature functions in this capacity, so we must examine the conditions that allow it to exist through an acknowledgement of human agency. This is demonstrated through the ravaging of innocent people who fall victim to the crimes of the Jimmies, a repeated atrocity that only stops when complicity does. If Spike, Kelson, and Kelly all do nothing, the cycle perpetuates. In an interview titled Jimmy Savile by the Man Who Knew Him Best, conducted by Carol Cadwallar, author Dan Davies speaks about how society continues to shield Savile. I think it's deeply worrying that 114 files have gone missing or have been destroyed. I don't see how the establishment will ever allow a true understanding of what has happened to emerge. You think another cover-up is inevitable? I fear another cover-up is inevitable. I am astonished, well, I'm not astonished. I'm a Hillsborough survivor, so I'm never particularly astonished by cover-ups. 114 files go missing, implicating supposedly some prominent figures within the political establishment. The circles moving out from that will be considerable. Both the media and government were instrumental in the cover-up of Savile's crimes. Each contributed to the construction of his cult of personality, affable image, and misplaced trust. Turning to the spiritual here would be an affront to his many victims, for this evil is human. Jimmy's persona takes on a similar role, adorning charisma and a willingness to arm and ultimately abuse the presence of apathy. Kelson adopts a Christ-like role in the final scene, dying so that Spike may live on. His material possessions are scarce, their true significance belonging with the dead, beckoning those who come after. Kelson is a composite of everyone he has both loved and treated. Satan is transformed into a force for retribution. Samson's calm is a false appearance to all but the doctor. The devil is the final thing Jimmy sees, a hallucination rendered by his own doing. Confrontation with this evil strips it of its power, allowing for altruism to take root. The boy knows the truth, and he will carry it with him. Humanity is at a crossroads with a seemingly untamable form of pure evil, where horror persists, furthered by those who are already dead. The zombies themselves are an endless force, representative of an unnatural state, a synthesis of human imperfection in the mirror of civilization. All evil is given a free pass to exist in this world. Sin survives through the mummification of flesh, even if its source is just. It is up to individual action within the collective to protect those who need it. Good arises from the root. At the end of the film, Cillian Murphy's Jim from 28 Days Later is seen teaching his daughter about European history until they are interrupted by Spike and Kelly running in the distance. They choose to help them. In this world, good is a necessary sacrifice that mends the misdeeds of generational abuse. Individual action compounds against a system one should have never had to fight in the first place. An illness reliant on rage against your fellow human persists. Community is the only way forward. Refuse to let the past die, for justice belongs to those who fight for it. If you'd like to support my work, please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel. My Patreon is in the description for those who wish to fund future videos with their generosity. Thank you to my current patrons, Joan, Jordan, and Joey. Thank you for watching. I truly appreciate it.